listening to Single Soul Purpose, soul-centered conversations on physical, mental, and spiritual growth for the single. Here's your host, integrative physical therapist, post-trauma thought leader, and singles mastery coach, Jennifer Watson. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Single Soul Purpose podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Watson, and we're really excited to have this gentleman on today. He is just going to drop so much passionate, knowledgeable truth and wisdom. He is a trained educator and relationships expert with a background in behavioral science. He is passionate about leading people to closing their highest potential and highest potential of each other. His philosophy merges the best of Eastern and Western methodologies to promote spiritual balance and empower people in life and love. From trauma release to navigating the really murky waters of modern masculinity to helping women understand the men in their lives. Yay! He helps people escape in negative patterns and cultivate a real positive sense of self. I love it. He has worked with thousands of men and women from all walks of life, special forces, soldiers, Olympic gold medalists, elite fighters, and everyday people to really create and reframe their relationships with themselves and their loved ones. So without further ado, I introduce to you Stefanos Stefandos. Stefanos, we are so excited to have you on today, and you're brilliant. We're going to probably have to have you on more than just this time. And I'm always honored to have the guests on because a lot of you have so many different entities and expertise that I always end up having to have you on again. So thank you first and foremost for coming on this show. I so appreciate it.
I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Absolutely. You are amazing at really dialing in a lot of cool things in relationships. You have so many different entities there, and you've had a lot of experience, a lot of expertise in helping people navigate through their really cool, intimate relationships. And this is a really unique time for us right now, right? And a lot of us have said that. A lot of us have said that we're just having this opportunity to really transform and self-reflect. And I really want to delve in today with you a little bit more about relationships, specifically just the intimate relationships that we're really finding people are having wins in, but also a lot of different struggles and different things that they're having to reflect on and journey through and just navigate through. And it's just this beautiful dance. So I always like to start a little bit with things that maybe have been wins, things that you have seen in your own world, in your own practice as a coach, as a high-level expert in relationships and coaching people through this time. What have you noticed have been maybe a top one or two wins that you've seen in these relationships, these intimate relationships, would you say?
I've definitely seen couples coming together and I want to say being more organized, being more structured. They've almost had to be.
Yeah.
And in developing these routines, they're collaborating at a deeper level.
Yeah.
And so in that collaboration, they're connecting more intimately as well,
Yeah.
because they're facing new challenges and they're overcoming those challenges. And that is cultivating a new and quite a foreign form of intimacy for them outside of maybe normative emotional sexual intimacy, which seems to be more common.
Right.
Navigating, working with children, having children at home and homeschooling and working from home and maybe even having lost employment. This navigation, this deeper collaboration is actually bonding them, and they're recognizing each other's strengths and they're complementing each other for that as well. And so there's a deeper level of appreciation as well. So these are wins for me. I mean, not just for me, I mean, for them.
Right. And I love, it's just interesting. And with people I've had on, it seems so interesting because we're saying so many different things, but I love what you just said, that we're having to have a little bit more structure at home because all of a sudden we have the kids' schedule, we have the husband's schedule or the woman's schedule or whatever's going on. So in some ways we need this more structure, but we also have to surrender and kind of figure out this new relationship with each other in this really unique dance. How are you finding people are winning that way? I know you just mentioned it's structure, but at the same time, you're delving through this new intimate relationship where you're seeing each other more. Where have there been wins specifically with that balance, would you say?
You said the word surrender, and synonymously with surrender is acceptance.
Yeah.
And these couples are basically saying very overtly, this is how it is. These are the circumstances that we are in. Can we make the best of it? Let's make the best of it. And in that, there's again a deeper win, because the connection that's being formed and the skills, the new skills that they're both cultivating in managing that is really quite profound. And in the surrender and acceptance process, there is a deep faith that's required as well. And so trust is being built.
I love that. Something I've noticed, Stephanos, with some of the clients I work with is a lot of them I work with, they really struggle with showing their true self to the world. Rejection is just a big fear of theirs. And even with their significant other, I'm finding that they're like, I didn't really want them to see this, and now we're having to deal with it because I'm around this person all the time. And what I found was, it has been a big win for a lot of my clients, is they're like, I actually feel more like me. I'm actually letting him see kind of all the good, the bad, the struggles I had, and he's actually accepting that. Or, and I just thought that's such a beautiful win, that more of their truth is coming out. Are you noticing that as well?
I am. And the counter to that is that not only are individuals de-armoring themselves, but they're also penetrating the armor of their partners in a more compassionate and patient way. And patience, for me, as I define it, is not being angry or agitated or self-loathing inside, but on the outside putting a happy, smiley face on.
Right.
It's actually really seeing the situation for how it is and accepting it without being wavered, without having this reaction, this harsh reaction, and really just observing, say, okay, why is this happening for me right now? What can I learn from this? What can I learn from my partner? How can I serve them, and how are they serving me with how they're behaving? And this level of acceptance, patience, surrender that's happening, and this penetration of the armor, and this full-bodied compassion that's taking place, because people are recognizing, well, we don't really have anywhere to go, so we've got to deal with this.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's so true. And just taking that, even just not only with your significant other, but we have a tendency to our children to want to be strong and show, goodness all the time. And I've had many of my clients say, you know what, I have my kids, I can tell they're being more themselves, they're being more goofy, and they're wanting to talk to me, explore their feelings more. And I'm not even going to them and asking them about it. They're coming to me. And I'm like, that's because they're seeing you start to explore yourself more. Are you seeing that too, that connection almost with your kids in a way that you weren't even expecting?
It's definitely deepening. I equate it to this. I remember many times in previous partnerships, and even in my marriage now, I'd often, because we travel so much and we travel so much together, we would both often use the plane as a medium for deep or confronting conversation, because where can we go?
Right.
So we either get into it and we really go into it, or we continue to numb and ignore. Right. And so this situation mimics that a little bit. And so people are just saying, well, I don't think they're consciously thinking this, but, well, we're on a plane, we've got nowhere to go, let's go into this.
Right.
Let's be real. Let's just be ourselves.
I love it. And I think the summary of all these wins is, I just find people are being more present in themselves, I don't even know how to say it, because that's said a lot in that way, but I just see more their light shining. Like, I get more giddy working with them, because I'm like, I can see you glowing. I can see it, your truth coming out, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And that you're just owning it and saying, this is me, and everybody's benefiting from it. And I love that. There are a lot of people, Stephanos, and you know that there's, we've seen violence go up in homes. We've seen a major conflict start happening in homes. We have seen the anxiety, depression. I have my clients reaching out to me right now. There's a lot of angst there too. There's definitely the families that are really feeling they don't have the support, the tools to really navigate through this. And let me know your thoughts on this, Stephanos, but I really feel for these people. My heart feels for them that are in a relationship, and they're not only being triggered of what their old fears and traumas and beliefs are about themselves, but they're also having to connect with another person that's dealing with their own fears and traumas, and then trying to reconnect as a couple. And it's like they're just getting hit with so many things, and it can be so overwhelming, and everybody's exuding different behavior, right? Sometimes more aggressively than others. And I would love to know what you have found have been probably the top one or two struggles that you've seen couples going through, whether it be individually or collectively, that they've gone through during this time that, like you said, they're forced to be in the plane. It's a beautiful thing, but there's some that are saying, this is not fun, Jennifer. This is not
Yeah.
fun. It's been really tough. What would you say have been some of your, maybe the top one or two struggles you've seen individually and collectively as a couple during this time that they've really struggled with?
Yeah, there are many, and two that come to mind in no particular order of priority or severity. One is the projection upon the partner. So one's own internal frustrations and
Yeah.
anger and sadness and depression,
Yeah.
and blaming and shaming and projecting upon the partner because they're not dealing with it.
Right.
And that's been quite
Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
for individuals and partnerships as well.
Right.
And that challenge has really brought up more conflict.
Right.
And in that conflict, they're avoiding their stuff more and more and more and more.
Right.
And the second part is that, or the other thing to mention is that people are trying to cling on and hold on to the past as it was, the normal. They want the normalcy because there's so much uncertainty where it's human nature, it's human behavior to do that. When we're completely uncertain, we are grasping for what is certain, what is known, what is familiar.
Yeah.
And I don't know if going back to the old way, one, is plausible.
Yeah.
And two, we really should be doing that.
Right.
And so in that going to the old way, we're denying a new potential, a new exciting and liberating potential, a healthy potential.
Right.
And so that's been an issue in partnerships as well.
Right. And would you say what about power? Has that come up a lot with you, like a power struggle?
Most definitely.
Yeah. Would you say it was in a particular topic, or just more, like you said, this uncertainty? So you want power, you want control over something, so you display power, or you try to display.
Correct. Yeah. So because people are coming from deep and dense fear, and it's usually old fear, it's core wounding, core fear that is amplifying the present moment, the uncertainty of the present moment. It is that grasp for control, and it's coming through exertion of that control.
Right.
Generally, it's if you have a core masculine expression or energetic, and you are in a lot of pain and fear, you move into that shadow expression of that. You're hyper and you're control. So you're very overtly forceful. If you have a core feminine energetic and you're moving into, again, that shadow expression, it's more manipulation. It's more passive aggressiveness.
Right.
And that's for both men and women.
Right.
Gender is irrelevant there. And so irrespective, it's this control, it's this power hungry sense of self that's coming through to protect self, not because they're trying to hurt anyone else, but it comes across that way. And that's what causes the friction, because they're unable to actually speak to that or communicate or express to that.
No. Yeah. I love that. So those are three big things. Those are three big things that can cause a lot of ruckus in a house. What would you say? And again, I know Steph knows in this time that we have, it's never this linear, but I always love to give people, some type of tool to start the momentum, just a little bit in the right direction, give them light, hope, to clear their brain, to calm them into that calmer state. On those 3 points that you just mentioned, what would you give for each of those? Maybe one tip, one little activity they could do if they're being triggered in that way, whether it be power, uncertainty, whatever. What would you say it would be for maybe individually for each of those points if they're feeling that?
Sure. So we can start with projection. So with respect to projection, having your own inner practice is vital. It's your own alone time, your own meditation, creating your own space, whether it's in the garden, in one of the rooms. You make sure that your partner's in the other room and so forth, or family members are in another room. Maybe it's some reading time, maybe it's some breath work, whatever it is, it's your own personal practice. However long, whatever that routine is, have that structure for you that gives you reprieve and insight into who you are. Maybe some journaling, that's part of it. That's really important.
Sure.
When it comes to hanging on to the past, when it comes to wanting the old way to be, there needs to be a letting go that takes place, right? And so with this, I would definitely suggest having someone to connect with. Now, this could be a psychologist, a counselor. It could be your partner, but remember, your partner is not your therapist. So I'll recommend two things here. You either have your own support network where you're reaching out on a regular basis and talking about the things, speaking to the things that are really ailing you, and having that ongoing support. But I would also suggest this. I would also suggest when you're with your partner, I'd make this a daily practice. At the end of every day, check in with each other.
Mm.
check in with each other and be vulnerable. Speak to how you're feeling. Speak to
Yeah.
your fears. And this very much helps with the projection as well.
Yeah.
Speak to your fears. Speak to what's coming up for you. Speak to what your thoughts are. Have an open, honest conversation without judgment.
Right.
That's the key. It's got to be without judgment. You've got to make those agreements. These are agreements in how you want to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Make those agreements prior to, and I'd have a daily check-in at the end of every evening.
Love
after
it.
you go to bed, after you finish whatever you're doing,
Right.
and have that. In terms of the power struggle, this is an important one.
Yeah.
When you go to be controlling or be forceful or manipulative or passive aggressive or whatever you're about to do,
Right.
you're going to feel that in your body. It will come up as tension, maybe in your throat or in your stomach. It'll be a dense or a deep feeling. In that moment, just pause.
Yeah.
Breathe slowly 3 times and ask, what would love do now? In that moment, you'll think twice, thrice, maybe even more about what you're about to do.
I love that. That is great. And, you know, as we're transitioning, I love these. These are powerful tools. You know, these are powerful
Simple,
tools.
but very effective.
Very effective. I love them. And I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. Do you think these tools need to shift at all? Because like you said, we're changing, we're shifting, our world is looking different. Is it really need to go back to the norm, you know? And we're all questioning that, like, really it's moving and we need to move with it. Do you think any of these tools are going to shift and how effective they are? Just being devil's advocate, do you think just with how our world is going and moving, are these tools, are these same even problems going to be happening post-quarantine?
Well, the tools aren't related to specific problems. The tools are related to how we deal with challenge and how our psyche interprets and how our psyche and emotional body, our integrated selves, deal with external challenge or the perception of external challenge and fear and so forth, and how we process fear. So these tools are more connected to the broad spectrum of fear, pain, challenge, difficulty, and so forth. It's not really specific to, coronavirus or COVID-19, and then in a new set of tools for COVID-20.
Right.
Like
Right. Well, and the reason why I bring that question up, because you have people, and even my clients, and I love them, but they do believe that this pandemic is shifting how you have to respond to everything. But I've said the same thing, Stephanos. We're still wanting to optimize love and resilience in introspection, in growth, in finding ways to do things better, but we're always doing that. And we've had times in our history. Yeah,
we may leverage different. So for example, I might say to you, journal. And that's the process of expression. Now there's something that happens in the brain when we actually write and we observe our writing as opposed to typing. However, if you wanted to journal, you could journal on your phone, you could journal on your computer or your iPad. It's still the process of critical reflection or introspection.
Right.
How the brain physiologically and how the body hormonally processes fear and dealing with challenge is the same now as it was 100,000 years ago or a million years ago.
Yeah.
Not
absolutely. And right there, I think that gives people huge power back, because we do have a lot of people in fear of letting the virus claim their mind, claim them physically, claim whatever it is they think. But again, this is still where we can use the same tools and wrap around that fear and improve and create power. So I love that. And it's something I wanted to address, because I have people, even these amazing people that have all these tools that are saying things that way. And I'm like, well, gosh, you know what though? We're still going to use the same tools to adapt and grow and get out of fear and get into a powerful state. So I love that you said that. As far as what you think, because I love what you do and I love your experience on this, Stephanos, but I really want to know your thought process on what you think if there is a new male role, what is the role of the man now, not just with his, significant other, okay, but the world. Is it going to look, is it already looking different now? Are we already seeing it in the homes? Is it going to look different leaving our homes now? Is there a different movement with men now and where they can go and adapt and grow? What would you say about that?
I think from a perspective of role modeling, what does it look like in terms of, are men going to be working from home, or are they going to be, is it going to be a different cultural projection? I think that's going to affect everyone, not just men.
Sure.
When you ask that question, though, what comes to mind is the leadership modeling of man. and how man shows up for himself and for his family and for his community and for those that are blessed to be leading larger communities such as countries and so forth. I think the virtues and the characteristics that accompany that are one of transparency. I think that of healthy power. So not power that's coming from autocracy or control or forcefulness or subjugation or judgment, but really healthy power. Authentic expression is going to be needed. A deeper connection to earth and a deeper integrated connection to the microcycles of earth and the microcycles of community and the macrocycles of community. What I mean by that is what people's needs are, not just focusing on a 4-year tenure for government because that's the priority and everything else falls by the wayside. I'm talking about what do people really need to feel safe, to feel heard, to thrive. And I think humans' role, not just man's role, but humans' role is really facilitating that. And men that are leading, because there are women that are leading as well, and men that are leading, specific to your question, I come back to that transparency and that integrity. What they're thinking, what they're experiencing internally must be reflected through their behaviors and through their external actions and expressions. And that for me is part of man stepping into a new paradigm and really becoming more in touch with what he's experiencing within and not isolating himself, because man has isolated himself for too long, and it has contributed to causing many issues that we are experiencing as a global collective. So man, 100%. Brethren, he needs a familiar feedback mechanism and a familiar mirror back to him. So I'm encouraging men to really step into surrounding themselves with other healthy men.
Yes, I love that. That is so true. What would you say is the new role, if it is new, of the woman leading in this, and I talk obviously in the United States, but in the world? How has that changed, or is it changing?
I think we're all adapting and shifting, because we can't ask man to change without woman to change. And by default, what that would mean is that it would even look like woman being different with man because she's never experienced him in that way. So then therefore she's going to have to change. Maybe conceptually she's understood that, and I believe she has, in her innate wisdom.
Sure.
But pragmatically that needs to change as well. So for me, it's stepping into that divine feminine energy of compassion and non-judgment. It's stepping into that divine feminine energy of freedom and nurturing and wisdom. I mean, there is so much deep intuition that a woman carries. And I mean that when I say woman, I mean the gender of a woman. Her brain, her intuitive faculties and centers of her brain are far more adept and more active than that of a man. And that doesn't mean a man isn't intuitive. A man carries deep foresight as well. However, it's just different in the way that it expresses. And I think it's now men doing deeper work by themselves with other men, and there is a coming together that is beckoning us. It's calling us, coming together of genders, a coming together of male and female, and there's a union that's coming. And so I think maybe the new role of woman is really legitimately preparing for that, not just a pipe dream or an idea that's happening in the future. I think it's happening now. And really being prepared for that. And I think part of that as well is we have to let go and release a lot of the past and surrender to that. And that's not an easy thing to do, because they've been collectively, women have been hurt and women have experienced a great trauma. And by default, it's also realizing that men have experienced a lot of trauma in that oppression themselves as well. And so this is the coming together. This is the forgiveness. This is the releasing. And this is us dawning in a new era of masculine, feminine, but also male, female interaction.
I love this because it's just the era of the power couple. I do believe that just an enlightenment on both sides are coming to be, both in the bedroom and out in the world. And I think I just see it on the horizon, Stephanos. I see this transformation happening. And I believe that power couple of really that enlightenment and balance of both sides is just a beautiful thing coming. What would you give? I mean, just kind of riffing here, what would you give it a title of? I call it the power couple of the next generation. What would you give it, like, for this transformation that you think is happening between men and women and the feminine and the masculine? What would you give it a title of? What would you give it a title of?
So it's a good question. I mean, I like what you said. That's cool, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's a conscious coupling for the next century.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That is a great phrase. You're going to have to take that line. So before, you've given so many different cool tips and entities of just different angles of looking at things. And I've gotten so much out of this stuff, Knows. But I guess just asking you one little personal question, like what have you, before we get off here today, what have you grown the most in during this time? What could you give our audience? Because you're just this person that a lot of people see, as the master relationship person that you're growing and evolving to right now. What would you say you've grown and evolved in a lot yourself?
I think really moving some of the more subtle and denser aspects of my own anger, because this situation has brought up a lot of anger for me and frustration and sadness. Sadness at our systemic structures, politically, economically, culturally. It's brought up anger and a sense of powerlessness, and how I'm responding to that, and I'm getting to observe some older aspects of self still coming through to the surface. So I get to play with that. The opportunity for me has been to go into those emotions and go into those parts of myself that are vested in fear. Yes, I'm extremely confident in where we're going as a humanity. Yes, I'm focusing on the potential and the unknown and what we're about to create. And yes, I'm fucking human, and I'm feeling the feels. That's the opportunity as well. And so, particularly for me, there's been some sadness, but it's been more the anger and the displacement of humanity, and how I feel we are being controlled. And I'm not talking about conspiracy theories.
Right.
Being controlled by the systems we've created for ourselves. We've created a rod for our own back. And are we going to learn this time? Like, can we really, really learn? And it's asking those big questions and going into the emotions of those questions that I'm asking and where that's really coming from. So that's been my work, my growth.
And I love how you said it is, it's sometimes semantics, but semantics makes a big difference. Definitely, I'm a big believer in it. And what you said is, I'm playing with it. I have this anger and this frustration, but I'm exploring and playing with it. And I think if we kind of go into it,
with it,
just kind of
debilitate me.
Yeah. And if you enter it kind of like a child, like, let's explore this a little bit. I think it helps pull down and process it a little bit more effectively. So I love that. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that, because we're all there and we're all growing. And I agree with you. We're at this cusp of creating huge power as couples, power in humanity. And we all have to feel the feels to get there, because mine have come up as well. So thank you so much, Stefanos. This has been amazing, deep content with a lot of great tools that I know people are going to be able to take as we continue through 2020, because 2020 is still going to be a great year. And I 100% believe that. So it's been an honor having you on. And I know everyone's going to want to know how they can connect with you, Stefanos, because you're going to have questions on this and they're going to want to just connect with you more. How can they do that? What's the easiest way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can check me out on social media at Stefanos Sifandos, or my website, stefanossifandos.com. And if you're interested in exploring further, coachwithsteph.com. Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Some good information there as well. Yeah.
Well, I know they're going to want to reach out, and I'm excited to get some feedback on this episode, because I know there's a lot of goodness there. So Stefanos, thank you so much for being a part today. It's been an absolute true honor.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're signing off from the Single Soul Purpose Podcast, everyone. You guys have a good rest of the day.
Thanks for listening to Single Soul Purpose, brought to you by Jennifer Watson Leadership. If this episode encouraged your soul today, head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Don't forget to connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Jennifer Watson Leadership.